Now that you've created your four-walled compound, you're ready now to add materials and textures to the walls. Do that here from the Assets window. Right-click and choose Create Material in the middle of the menu. And that'll bring up the inspector here for the materials. There's a lot of options here. Let's start with just changing the color under albedo right here. Click on the color chip, and let's just make it kind of a red color. And notice that I have my material here, and we'll go ahead and close the color chip. And then all you do is notice that the assets are here in the assets panel. You'll want to organize your material assets into a folder, but simply drag the material onto the wall, and each wall there. Notice you can also add material to the plane, and very simply do that. And notice that there are various metallic settings, makes it more glossy and shiny. So depending on the kind of material that you're working with, smoothness as well. So you'll want to adjust. And notice that the wall here will adjust to those settings. I think you can probably see it in this view a little bit better. Let's now also create a material for the plane. So again, we'll right-click in the Assets window, Create Material. And this one we'll make green. And then here it is. Drag it onto the plane. Now, if you want to get something with more interest than just a solid color, then you're talking textures. There's a variety of places you can get textures, including the Unity Asset Store. There's many, many, many that are free and some great ones. But let me show you a neat trick for getting free textures in Google, from Google. So send your browser to Google and then click on the Images tab and type something like brick tileable, or seamless is another keyword you can use, seamless bricks. And the key is you want to get something that is free but wraps perfectly. So that's what they call seamless, because it's going to basically tile these. You won't notice where the first tile ends and the second tile begins. So something like this, old brick wall texture seamless. So click on that and then essentially right-click and choose Save Image As and call this seamless brick. Save this somewhere convenient. Move out of Google. And then come back here and create a new material. You're always going to add your textures to materials. So create material. And let's call this bricks, maybe red bricks. And then here in the inspector, there's a little button right here next to albedo. Click on that and notice that there are a variety of textures here. So if you go and upload that brick to your assets folder, it'll appear here in this window. So to do this, I've brought up two folders. One contains my seamless brick JPEG. This is my project folder here, new Unity Project 1. Here's my assets folder. I simply take this and drag it into assets. And there is my new seamless brick. So I'll click on my bricks material, click on the little button next to albedo. There's my brick. Notice that here is my material with the bricks texture wrapped around it. So now I simply take this and drag it to there. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see the bricks closer. Now they're not quite looking correct because they are a little bit stretched too much. So if we click on the material here, notice that there's a tiling setting that I haven't talked about before. The tiling will tell you what dimensions this tiling is. So you can put numbers in here to see what looks better. So that looks better, 4 to 1, 4 in the X direction and 1 in the Y direction. Let's try 6 to 1. And that's looking really good. And move around a little bit. And you can see that that looks pretty authentic and pretty well done. You can also look in the top of the brick of the brick wall, and you'll want to adjust the thickness of those bricks as well. But try different numbers here. 8 to 1. Looks like that. 8 to 3. Notice stretches them out too much. So you can adjust the tiling, and that's just a good way to learn all these different settings here in the inspector, is to try out different techniques, different skills, and then adjust the numbers. There's also an offset. If you're finding that there's a seam, you can see the seam there between the tiles. So this is tiling, and it's seamless. You can't tell where one starts and one ends. You can set the offset and sometimes make that look more realistic, but that looks pretty good. And so that's how you add a material to an object, and then how do you add a texture to a material. Probably I'm at this point now where I want to organize my materials here and my textures. So you would basically create a new folder here, call it materials. You want to try to keep organized, and then just start dragging this stuff into your materials folder. And then take your materials folder, and actually what you want to do is create a project folder and put your scenes and materials in there. So you'll have models, materials. You can also separate out the textures, but you want to try to keep your assets folder as organized as possible.